Scholars tell us that Hinduism's beautiful teachings about the soul's union with Atman Brahman are a relatively recent invention in its long history. They believe that early Hinduism was based on primitive nature worship. This we must see through and understand. It is the greatest misunderstanding, the Western conception of Hinduism. At first glance, the earliest Hindu texts, the Vedas, don't appear to have much to do with mysticism. They appear to be preoccupied with outer rituals and elaborate sacrifices. Scholars believe that the earliest Vedas were composed between 1500 and 1200 BC. But the Hindus say that the Vedas were revealed by God 3000 BC or earlier. The Vedas and other early texts give specific details on sacrifices to be performed for achieving wealth, power, health, prosperity, and success, as well as immortality in heaven. The sacrifice of the juice of the soma plant is one of the major Vedic sacrifices. There is also an elaborate horse sacrifice. The gods of the Rig Veda resemble those of the Greek and Roman pantheons. They are the gods of the sky, gods of the air, and gods of the earth. The Rig Veda, the oldest of the Vedas, centers around the story of the winning of the light and the winning of the waters. To win the waters, the god Indra must conquer the serpentine monster Vritra, who is blocking the flow of the 7 rivers. Indra conquers Vritra and releases the waters to flow to the sea. Scholars have seen this primarily as a myth of the bringing of rain, but many Hindus believe that the Vedas have a deeper spiritual interpretation. They see no conflict between the Vedas and the Upanishads. Sanskrit scholar David Frawley is one of the clearest expositors of this view. He says most of what has been done on the Vedas so far remains largely the unquestioned work of 19th century Western scholars who were often trapped in the cultural and sometimes imperialistic bias of their times. Frawley tried to look deeper into Hinduism to see whether what appears to be primitive to Westerners merely reflects our lack of understanding of the ancient mind. This is Frawley's conclusion. He says that the myth of Indra winning the light and the waters is not about sun and rain. The light is the spiritual light. Indra represents our true self. When Indra wins the light, he is winning enlightenment or self-realization. Frawley believes that the myth of the winning of the waters is really describing the practice of yoga. Yoga is a method of freeing the light that is within us. This light, called Kundalini, or the goddess Kundalini, is coiled at the base of the spine. The ascended masters call this light the sacred fire. It stays there until we release it and allow it to flow up through the 7 spiritual centers called chakras, which are located along the spine. When the light or sacred fire reaches the 7th chakra, the crown chakra, according to Hindu tradition, Atman becomes one with Brahman, and the soul attains enlightenment. Frawley writes, Indra, the wielder of the thunderbolt, destroys the dragon who lies coiled at the foot of the mountain, and thereby releases the 7 rivers to flow into the sea. Indra represents the awakened mind, or the state of seeing. The dragon or serpent is the Kundalini, which lies at the base of the mountain of the spine. The 7 rivers are the 7 chakras or yogic centers in the subtle body. Their waters are the streams of bliss that flow from them. So you can see, Hinduism is a religion of mysticism. And if you are not a mystic, you cannot interpret Hinduism. The sacrifices described in the Vedas are one of the aspects of Hinduism that make it appear strange to those of the Judeo-Christian tradition who worship one God. But the sacrifices too have an inner meaning. As Frawley writes, the Vedic sacrifice is inwardly a purification of our faculties, including our breath, for the realization of truth, for putting back together the cosmic man, Indra, you. Indra, who is your true self. The Vedic fire sacrifice reflects an inner sacrifice of the ego to the flame of divine consciousness. Frawley also believes that the Vedic animal sacrifices were meant to be symbolic of the soul offering its vital nature to God. And he believes that the original Vedic people did not favor animal sacrifice. Yet in late Vedic times, he writes, when the culture had fallen and come under the influence of the warrior class, animal sacrifice became common. Do Hindus worship one god or many gods? That seems an easy question to one first visiting a Hindu temple. There are gods everywhere. Vishnu, Shiva, Surya, Ganesha, Durga, Kali, Lakshmi, Saraswati. And then there are the incarnations of Vishnu, Krishna and Rama. The first Europeans to visit India were convinced that the Hindus were heathens who worshipped many gods. But then some took a closer look, and they began to listen to what the Hindus were saying about themselves. Hindus believe that there is but one God who has many manifestations. How many gods are in this tent? How many manifestations of God are in this tent? Lots and lots. Bhatika Mukherjee explains the Hindu view of God. Hindus use the term Sat Chit Ananda, being, consciousness, bliss, to express their idea of God. He who in essence is without form assumes countless forms in order that a devotee may find refuge at his feet. The many images of the Hindu pantheon are not many gods. They are varying aspects of the same ultimate reality called Sat Chit Ananda. Sat Chit Ananda. Hindus believe that each one should worship the aspect of God that gives him the greatest sense of devotion and oneness with God. Mukherjee writes, the God image most dear to the heart of a man is his own personal key to the mystery of the divine cosmic panorama that he seeks to unravel. My teaching on this would be the following. First, affix yourself to one whom you can know and understand the most and love the most, someone very close to you. The one that I love the most is the one whom I perceive to have done the greatest for me over many eons. There is a gratitude, there is a bonding, there is a profound love between myself and my beloved Guru, El Morya. The love that wells up in my heart when I give his mantras or sing his songs is beyond anything I experience, and yet I have profound experiences with all the ascended masters and with all of the mantras. This heart-to-heart contact and bonding that I have with El Morya as his Chela opens the doors of the cosmos to me, to all other beings of light. So I would say to you, ponder carefully where you can pour the great love of your heart, into what chalice, what heart chalice of an ascended master or one of the Eastern versions of the manifestation of God. And so develop that relationship by a daily mantra. Always begin by doing what's easy for you to do. Give a mantra and set your determination to give it for 3 minutes. Make a pact with yourself. Every day of my life, I will give this mantra for 3 minutes, to this particular master because I desire to be tutored by him and to be shown the way of my godhood. You need to affix yourself with one with whom you can identify. But the next step on the path is to say to yourself, in what am I lacking the most? What do I lack the most of all things and all qualities? This lack being such a void that it could cause me to lose my ascension because I don't have the full balance of the specific qualities and attributes of God. If you think you need to love more, or to be more merciful, or to be more kind, or whatever you think you might be missing, then choose the master who so embodies so greatly that quality which you are lacking that you can, through the heart of that one, gain balance in the qualities of God within you. So the point is, pick the master that is most like you and whom you are most like, and then pick a second one whose very manifestation of mastery you need so much that you know you are obliged to also give mantras to that one. Kuan Yin is a great one to whom we can give mantras because there is no such thing as our ever having enough mercy or enough compassion toward life. We can never get enough of it. And I can tell you, as I've seen souls who've made the transition, gone into the etheric octaves, prepared to re-embody, on more than one occasion, El Moria has told me that these souls who are returning for a mighty mission regret that they did not love more while they were in embodiment. So we all know that we love. We have to consider how much more are we capable of loving? And the answer will always be much, much more. Even the old Vedic gods, Soma, Indra, Agni, and the like, have an inner meaning quite apart from mythology. According to the spiritual interpretation, the Vedic gods are symbols for different aspects of enlightenment. David Frawley writes, Agni is the Kundalini, the flame at the base of the spine. Soma is the immortal nectar or Ananda in the head. Surya, whom we call Surya, as the sun, is the consciousness of the self, Atman, in the heart. Indra is the awakened life force or perceiver who facilitates the practice of God realization through yoga. Now, if you have not yet awakened the life force or raised the Kundalini or pursued God realization through one of the forms of yoga, then to you, the name of Indra will mean very little. Indra has not been awakened in you. Indra has not been formed in you. Remember Paul saying, till Christ be formed in you. So the crystallization of a particular image of a God manifestation comes with devotion, comes with self-knowledge, comes with acquainting thyself now with him. And so you don't have to be awakened to all of the manifestations of God at once. You don't have to feel as though somehow you're an outsider because you haven't internalized Indra. You can know that that aspect of God is waiting for you when you are ready. And you can approach that aspect of God through the heart of the Guru or the Ascended Master whose mantra you recite. Hindus endlessly debate the nature of God. Some believe that God is completely without form or attribute. Others believe that God possesses both form and attribute. I have found in my discussions with Hindu scholars, as well as holy men, that they tend to drift off into metaphysics, into arguments and reasonings and logical explanations about this and that. So I think that the path of Hinduism that I prefer the most is the Bhakti Yoga, the path of devotion and love, which allows us to expand the heart and not get lost in these endless arguments, which really are not what produces salvation. So these scholars and the like agree that God is the creator, preserver, and destroyer, or transformer of the universe. But they differ on just who the supreme God is. Worshippers of Vishnu believe that Vishnu is the creator, preserver, and destroyer. Worshippers of Krishna believe that Krishna is the supreme personality of the Godhead, the creator, preserver, and destroyer. Worshippers of Shiva believe that Shiva is the creator, preserver, and destroyer. Worshippers of Shakti, the feminine principle of God, believe that she is the active creator, preserver, and destroyer. They believe that Brahman, as Shiva, the masculine principle of God, is inactive. He conceives of the creation, and his Shakti executes it. The doctrine of the Trimurti teaches that God is a trinity: Brahma the creator, Vishnu the preserver, and Shiva the destroyer. However, belief in the Trimurti is not widespread in India. The plethora of Hindu views about God has caused great confusion about Hinduism in the West. But the great saint Ramakrishna, who lived from 1836 to 1886, said that there should be no conflict about the nature of God. He said, really, the different views of God are not contradictory. As a man realizes God, so does he express his true self. If somehow one attains him, then one finds no contradiction in him or in himself. Ramakrishna quoted the 15th century Hindu mystic Kabir, who used to say, "The formless absolute is my father, and God with form is my mother." Hindus believe that not everyone is ready for God. As you know, Hinduism teaches that karma necessitates reincarnation, that the soul returns to earth again and again to learn her lessons in a long chain of death and rebirth. Young souls first pursue pleasure and prestige. Only when they have become tired of power, money, and material things, the conquests of the ego, do they seek religion. Hindus believe that salvation is available to all, but not everyone is ready for or desirous of salvation. They enjoy life on planet Earth, knowing it is temporal and full of pain and suffering. Sometimes people need a jolt before they become serious and one-pointed in their search for God. Though they experience the bliss of God when they are in heaven, between embodiments, as soon as they are reborn, they become enmeshed in the illusory pleasures of the senses. Jyotirmayananda tells another story. Once Indra prayed to Vishnu and asked him why the people in the world lived in such pain and misery. Vishnu appeared to him and said, "These creatures are not ready to ascend to the heavenly abodes. They are happy where they are." Indra did not believe him. So Vishnu said, "I will convert you into a hog so that you will understand." Indra found himself in the form of a hog. Over time, he had a family with many piglets. He rolled in the mud, amusing the piglets with his play and fun. At that time, the sage Narada went to Indra to remind him of his essential nature. He said, "O Indra, you are not this hog. Don't you wish to return to heaven, where there are delights beyond one's expectations?" Indra said, "I remember the joys of heaven, but I see my beautiful children playing with me and kissing my mouth with their flat noses, and I forget about heaven." Narada spoke firmly, "O Indra, it is a pity that you have to revel in filth. Come back to heaven with me. I will restore you to your previous state." The hog replied, "O sage, do not disturb my innocent pleasures. I am not desirous of going to heaven, where I am not in the company of my piggy wife and my flat-nosed darlings and where it is not possible to feed on the things that we find here on earth. Therefore, leave me alone. Narada then invoked Lord Vishnu, who against the will of the hog restored him to his previous state as Indra. Then Vishnu asked Indra, "Do you understand why these creatures are not taken to heaven?" Indra, ashamed, said, "O Lord, I understand my folly. Everyone is limited to one's vision. The mortals do not desire to attain heaven, so they keep themselves immersed in the little pleasures of the world, which are in fact painful and illusory." In the words of my beloved Guru, the Ascended Master El Morya, "Until men recognize the darkness, they do not reach for the light." And so there are Hindu texts that urge man to seek God. The Katha Upanishad exhorts us, "Arise, awake, approach the great and learn." But it warns that the path to salvation is difficult, like the sharp edge of a razor, hard to tread and difficult to cross. Hindus believe that there are many levels of heavens and hells to which we are assigned after death, but that liberation through union with the Atman can be achieved only while we are in human form, or as we would say, while we are in physical embodiment. Between embodiments, the soul's residence in either heaven or hell, that is either in the etheric octave or in the lower astral plane, is temporary. True soul freedom and reunion with God is one here on earth, not between embodiments, but while we are in physical embodiment. This is why your physical body is so important to you. It's through the physical body and in the physical plane that you balance your karma that you made in this octave, that you gain points and accelerate toward God. So if you waste your time and postpone your chilaship, you will find yourself on the other side not having accomplished what was your assignment in this life. And then you will wait, and you will wait, and you will wait until some mother and father decide to have you rather than to abort you. And then you will return to a different world, and your peers and your schoolmates, classmates in Earth's schoolroom will not be here. Many of them will have graduated, and you will find yourself in a new class, a class of students that are not familiar to you because they are not a part of your mandala. So while you have life and breath and a physical body, take care of that body and use it as the Lord's instrument. So the decisions we make every day and every hour of our lives are crucial. They set the sail of our soul's direction in the afterlife. The American Transcendentalists, the group of 19th century philosophers, were in harmony with Hindu thought. In Ralph Waldo Emerson's poem Brahma, Brahma says, "The strong gods pine for my abode, and pine in vain the sacred seven. But thou, meek lover of the good, find me and turn thy back on heaven." That's what I have done, and that's what you must do. Turn your back on heaven, make the most of earth, balance your karma, and become one with the Atman so that you can bless life because they can see you. People can't see you after you're gone. Show yourself and your light to them now and save their souls. Kabir wrote, "O friend, hope for him whilst you live. Know him whilst you live. Understand him whilst you live. For in life deliverance abides. If your bonds be not broken whilst living, what hope is there of deliverance in death?" That means the bonds of attachment to the lower self and its desires. It is but an empty dream that the soul shall have union with him because it has passed from the body. If he is found now, he is found then. If not, we do but go to dwell in death. At some point in the chain of our embodiments on earth, we come to the ultimate crossroads when we must take our stand, to be or not to be. That is a decision that only you can make. We live in a society that makes so many decisions for us every day that we forget that we are not taking to ourselves exclusively the most important decision of all, to be eternal in God or not to be eternal in God. Every day of your life, you have to reconfirm that decision and remind yourself you have 24 hours in which to serve God, balance karma, and extend that hand and pull someone up who is caught somewhere at some level, who cannot extricate himself. Either we are ready for the path or we are not. Either we've had our fill of the world or we haven't. Beloved El Morya says to those who are ready for change, there is a path. Step by step it has been carved by the initiates of the sacred fire. Over thousands of years, the barefooted devotees have worn a trail over the rocks. I'd like to remind you to reread the Chila and the Path. Read it again from the foundations that you have built and laid in this conference. Remember the book Cosmic Consciousness, which Lanello dictated to me shortly after his ascension. It is a most profound understanding of the path. It is very deep, and it tells us what the soul and the heart of the spirit of Lanello are made of. I would like to mention to you that El Morya's retreat is in India, in Darjeeling, and for your joy and sustaining of a heart tied to him during this class, just before the conference, we put together all of the songs we have to beloved El Morya that we have put together in harmony. And so I encourage you to acquaint yourself with El Morya. He is a stern but profoundly loving master, and his sternness is always his love that wants to create a shortcut and get us there by the shortest distance. The Hindu mystics tell us that we must develop a pining, a longing, and a yearning for God. I can tell you that I have a perpetual pining and longing and yearning for the God I know in El Morya. Ramakrishna said, as the drowning man pants hard for breath, so must one's heart yearn for the Lord before one can find him. Ramakrishna described his own feeling of longing for the Divine Mother Kali, who was his chosen deity. He said, I was then suffering from excruciating pain because I had not been blessed with a vision of the Mother. I felt as if my heart were being squeezed like a wet towel. I was overpowered by a great restlessness and a fear that it might not be my lot to realize her in this life. I could not bear the separation any longer. Life did not seem worth living. Suddenly my eyes fell on the sword that was kept in the Mother's temple. Determined to put an end to my life, I jumped up like a madman and seized it, when suddenly the Blessed Mother revealed herself to me, and I fell unconscious on the floor. What happened after that externally, or how that day or the next passed, I do not know, but within me there was a steady flow of undiluted bliss, altogether new, and I felt the presence of the Divine Mother. But Hinduism is absolutely clear on one point. You cannot progress on the spiritual path without a teacher. Upanishad literally means sitting down opposite somebody. You have to have someone to sit opposite. That means you have to study under someone in order to attain the goal of the Upanishads. Swami Vivekananda, who introduced many Americans to Hinduism at the turn of the century through the Vedanta Society, said, "Religion cannot be bought, nor can it be acquired from books. You may thrust your head into all the corners of the world. You may explore the Himalayas, the Alps, the Caucasus. You may sound the bottom of the sea and pry into every nook of Tibet and the desert of Gobi, but you will not find it anywhere until your heart is ready to receive it and your teacher has come." In India, a spiritual teacher is known as a guru. Gu means ignorance and ru means dispeller. Guru. Therefore, a guru is a dispeller of ignorance. Others believe that guru is derived from the Sanskrit root giri, meaning one who calls. Therefore, it means one who hears the call of the divine and who calls us to become one with God. We need a guru because we cannot see our own errors. I came to that conclusion when I was about 18 years old. I said to myself, I have done everything I know how to do. To self-correct, to self-purify, I know it's not good enough. I don't know what more is wrong with me. I have to find my teacher. And it was at the age of 18, before I left home, that I felt Saint Germain's presence, recognized him by seeing his picture in a book in my mother's library. And I went on the quest for that guru. And you know what I was looking for? I was looking for a pair of eyes. I would search the eyes of everyone I met, from child to adult, teenager, man, woman, every class. I would study the people. And on the inner, I could see that pair of eyes. But I couldn't find that pair of eyes. And so finally, when I was led through a very out-of-the-way, roundabout experience to find the Ascended Master's study group in Boston, and then I was notified that Mark Prophet was coming to deliver a dictation and to teach. And I went there and I sat opposite where he would be sitting. And I was in meditation, and I opened my eyes, and he was before me, and I saw the pair of eyes I had been looking for all of my life. Without any question, I had found my teacher. The teacher being someone in this octave who could connect me to those not in this octave, the Ascended Masters. This was the greatest moment of my life, absolutely the greatest moment, to find that pair of eyes. So I found the one who could show me my own errors, my own rough places, probe my psychology, etc. And I found that there's a part of the self that doesn't want to give up that part of the self. There's a part of the self that wrestles with the guru, even though one has found the guru. And so it becomes quite an experience. And the submission to the guru came to me for two reasons. My love of the guru, Mark Prophet, and of El Morya, and my sense, which is a gift of God to me, I call it the historical sense. I've always had the sense of ages past and evolutions and worlds, and where we have come from these ancient times, and where we are going. I had the sense of current history because I had studied it, and government. I had the sense of where the world was going and where it was not going. And I surely did have the sense of the urgency of the hour. And if I hadn't had it, the statement was repeated to me enough times that if you will not be trained as a messenger and be trained quickly, then we may not have a messenger, because Mark Prophet will not be an embodiment that long. So these are the factors: the knowledge of coming events, the love of the Guru I saw, and the love of the Guru who I was beginning to see day by day. You have to have a reason to discipline yourself, and if the reason isn't love, you won't find one that will accomplish the task. Will not do it. Knowledge will not do it. The only thing that can make you lay down your life for your Guru and all people is love. And that love is the love you feel from the Guru, that is such a tremendous love that you can hardly believe there is such a love in the universe. And it woos you to the heart of God. And by that love, and only by that love, will you pass all your tests. So I want you to know that I am keenly aware of what you are facing as the challenges in your life, and the Ascended Masters are that much more aware, of course. We have all been to the same places. We all understand. I ask you to pursue the path of devotion to God, so that in the hour of choice, it is love for God, love for Jesus, and his love for you that enables you to make the right choice and take the high road instead of the low road. Batika Mukherjee writes, "A man who is in ignorance does not know that he is laboring under a misapprehension. To him, the error is truth. It is an outsider who alone can point out the error for him. A guru is someone who has lived in the human condition and understands the path we wish to follow." Swami Gayaneshwaranda writes, "The Guru has had the excellences as well as the defects and difficulties of human life. He has understood them thoroughly, and by means of his experiences and experiments, he has discovered a method by which to rise above them. There are requirements for gurus. First, the Guru must be able to interpret the spirit of the scriptures as opposed to the letter. The Guru must be free from sin, pure in heart, and free from ulterior motive of fame or gain. Most importantly, the Guru must have realized the Atman. If we do not have such a Guru, we will be like blind men led by blind men. The Katha Upanishad calls those who do not have a Guru who has realized the Atman blind men who also a blind man leads. It says, meandering in the depths of ignorance, imagining themselves as wise and learned, the fools run about aimlessly to and fro. Many there are who do not even hear of Atman. Many who hear of him do not comprehend him. He who teaches about him is a wonder. He who understands him is an expert. He who taught by experts knows him is rare indeed." In the Gita, Krishna himself told us that our teachers should be those who have seen the truth. He said, "Ask from them, bow unto them, be unto them a servant." Just as there are requirements for gurus, so there are requirements for students or disciples. The Hindi word for disciple is chela. The chela must follow strict rules of conduct. First, he must be obedient to his guru. The word chela in Hindi is called chela. If you wish to use that correct pronunciation, you are welcome to. I first heard the word chela spoken by Mark Prophet, and he said chela, and it's been with us ever since. The Vishnu Dharma Shastra, composed in the early centuries after Christ, says of the student, "By honoring his mother, he gains the world. By honoring his father, he gains the world of the gods. And by paying strict obedience to his spiritual teacher, he gains the world of Brahman. The Hindu ideal is for the Chela to live with the Guru, preferably for a period of 12 years. Great importance was placed on association and imitation in the learning process, says scholar Joel Mleko. This close personal contact enabled the Guru to intimately and radically influence and mold the student's life. The Guru instructs by his every action. He not only explains the scriptures, but as Mleko described it, he also teaches by his life. Daily acts, casual words, silence, overseeing the student's health, sleep, diet, the company he keeps, the places he visits. The Chela was meant to serve the Guru as well as to study under him. He had to tend the Guru's sacred fire, watch his cattle, collect alms for him, and obey his every command. A Chela must be pure, have a thirst for knowledge, and be willing to persevere to get it. As Swami Vivekananda wrote, there must be a continuous struggle, a constant fight, an unremitting grappling with our lower nature. The Chela must be willing to persevere not just for a year or years, but for a lifetime or many lifetimes. This is the experience I had with Mark Prophet, and the thought just occurred to me that I was with him just shy of 12 years. During those years, I learned from his every move and expression, from his heart, from his words, from his wisdom. I learned how to make decisions. I learned how El Morya makes decisions as I observed the mind of Mark Prophet. I saw him independent of the academic world, the intellectual world, the religious world. I saw him as an individual who was not a conformist in any sense of the word. He did not act to please any level of society, to present himself in any particular guise. He was just pure and simple himself, spontaneous, childlike, wise as the most ancient of days, altogether human and capable of being human. The best friend you could ever have, and the person who was so intimately concerned for every aspect of your life. I could not have learned what I learned from being in his presence by simply studying the dictations of the Ascended Masters. I can tell you that here at Maitreya's Mystery School, the Ascended Masters have attempted to replicate the Eastern concept of the ashram of the Guru, here the Guru being Lord Maitreya, El Morya, and others of the Masters, where you can come and study for a time and feel closer to the immortal Gurus, closer to those who have been with the Gurus, and begin to understand what is the way of your homeward path. The Chela cannot expect the Guru to be humanly perfect. That was what was so wonderful about Mark Prophet. He was not humanly perfect. And I can tell you, all the idolaters and the fanatics and the heartless people would condemn him at the first sign of his imperfection. And of course, I myself have received the same treatment. It's really good to be imperfect because, you know, it weeds out the people who are looking for a human God. And there's no such thing as a human God. Guru worship is common in India. Since the Guru is seen as one who is God realized, who is identified with Brahman, he is given the same reverence given to God. The same reverence given to God. Scholar N.P. Pundit writes, the Guru embodies the Lord, for it is through the person of the Guru that God manifests himself to the disciple and reaches him with his saving grace. Swami Satchidananda writes, "The highest of all forms of worship is the worship of the Guru. It is very difficult to worship the Guru. There is ample opportunity to lose faith in him, while there is nothing to make you lose faith in a picture, a form, a statue of a god. When you adore a living person, he is not always the same." End of quote. The Guru's word is law, even though he may contradict himself from day to day. Jyotirmayananda tells us another story. Once King Akbar, our beloved El Morya, said to his witty minister Birbal, "How I love this preparation of eggplant. It is so tasty." "Yes, your majesty," said Birbal. "Because of its virtue, God has crowned it with a green crown. How beautiful it appears." King Akbar ate too much eggplant. He had indigestion. He said to Birbal, "I dislike eggplants. It has produced pain in my stomach." Birbal, "Well said, your majesty. That is why God has hurled a nail into its head. It wears a scarf of tiny thorns." Akbar, "But did you not say only yesterday that the eggplant is crowned by God? Today you have changed your tune." "Yes, your majesty," replied Birbal. "I am your servant, and not the servant of the eggplant." When it finds your favor, I praise it. When you withdraw your favor, I too dislike it. King Akbar was pleased with his answer. Even so, says Swami Jyotirmayananda, a disciple must unite himself with the Guru's heart and serve him wholeheartedly for the attainment of self-realization. Saint Germain unveiled to us in his original Studies in Alchemy course 4 phases of God's expression, and these 4 phases are also expressed through the Guru. We charted these on a clock, a simple face of a clock, and on the 12 o'clock line, the side of the north, we put the impersonal impersonality. That's the concept of God the Father, impersonal and an impersonal personality. Opposite the Father, on the 6 o'clock line, is the Mother. She is a personal personality. Very personal, very much embodied as a person of God. That's the side of the south. On the east, we find that God is an impersonal personality. He's impersonal, but he's an impersonal personality. You have to ponder this concept. It does come to you as you ponder it. And on the west side, God is a personal impersonality. This shows the relative balance of the yin and yang forces within these 4 aspects of God, which are also reflected in your 4 lower bodies. So an impersonal impersonality is a yang-yang. A personal personality is a yin-yin. An impersonal personality is a yang-yin. And a personal impersonality is a yin-yang. Now you can figure that one out. And so from time to time, these 4 aspects of the Godhead are appearing in the Guru. The Chila's interaction with each aspect of the Guru is necessary to his own realization of the Atman. Loving the Guru in his many manifestations is sheer joy, and it opens the heart of the Guru to the Chila. As the devout soul is the mirror of the Atman, so the true Chila is the mirror of Brahman in the Guru. Kabir wrote this poem about the Guru. "O brother, My heart yearns for that true guru who fills the cup of true love and drinks of it himself and offers it then to me. He removes the veil from the eyes and gives the true vision of Brahma. He reveals the worlds in him and makes me to hear the unstruck music. He shows joy and sorrow to be one. He fills all utterance with love. Kabir says, "Verily he has no fear who has such a guru to lead him to the bomb shelter of safety." No, to the shelter of safety. The Upanishads tell us what to do. Yoga tells us how to do it. Yoga is a method by which an individual may become united with the Godhead. The word yoga comes from the Sanskrit root yuj, which means to link. Yoga has the same root as the English word to yoke. Sanskrit, as you may know, belongs to the Indo-European family of languages and is thus related to English. Therefore, yoga means a method of spiritual union. When Jesus said, "Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light," he might have been referring to yoga. Was he really saying, "Take my yoga upon you"? Jesus had a yoga. He followed a specific discipline. In my book of the Lost Years of Jesus, I published 3 translations of ancient Tibetan manuscripts that say Jesus spent 17 years in the East. The manuscripts say he left Palestine for India at age 13, traveling with a merchant caravan. At Juggernaut, he studied under the white priests of Brahma. He learned to heal the sick, teach the scriptures, and cast out evil spirits. He also went to Nepal and, according to legend, passed through Tibet and Afghanistan. At age 29, he returned to Palestine and took up his mission. In my books on the lost teachings of Jesus, I show that Jesus' New Testament teachings are compatible with karma, reincarnation, and other Hindu concepts. I also give some of the secret teachings Jesus gave only to his disciples. I would like to remind you that the Lost Years of Jesus and the Lost Teachings of Jesus are the most important books that you can give to those who are beginning their spiritual quest. First of all, it is important to know that Jesus is not confined to Christian doctrine and dogma, and that is what his years in the Far East tell us about. His journey also tells us that the teenage years are the time when we must study to fulfill our mission, when we must learn the mastery of the 4 lower bodies and prepare for that mission. Jesus earned his doctorate and more in India under the great gurus. He came to be a student, not a teacher, and yet they welcomed him as that enlightened one. I purposely wrote this book without any of our teachings of our organization in it, so that people could just digest one point, that Jesus was a man like you and me. He had to learn and put on the fullness of his Christhood. Even though he had been that Christ for long centuries, he had to study and submit himself to the great teachers.